What's going on, everybody? Project Rod here, and welcome to the Rodcast, the Monster Truck Fanatic podcast, which is your ultimate destination for all things monster trucks. Whether you're a diehard Monster Jam fan, a passionate follower of the monster truck scene, or just an avid player of the Monster Jam related video games, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Project Rod, and on today's episode, it's episode 3. We're going to be talking about World Finals 1, kind of a recap and my personal opinions. Unfortunately, I won't have a guest this week. It's just poor planning on my end, but I will have somewhat of a sign-up sheet or something set up here soon. That way, if you do want to be a part of this podcast, we can get you scheduled and give you a date, and that way you can prepare yourself and I can be a little better prepared myself. So, I'm just going to be riding solo for today. I did make a video on this about 6-7 months ago regarding World Finals 1. It's on YouTube now if you do want to check it out. It's going to be somewhat of the same of what I'm doing now, but just a quick recap of World Finals 1, who was in it, what happened, who won racing, who won freestyle, and then I'm going to give my own opinions on what I think should have happened, should have been, who should have won, whatever it may be, just my own personal opinions on the sport. If you have your own personal opinions, please be sure to leave it in the comments down below. But before we get to that portion of the podcast today, we're going to be talking about the results for this past week, of the Monster Jam Steel Titans 2 Stadium Series that is on my YouTube channel, Project Rod. And like I said, last week was the second stop of the Stadium Series. When we left the first stop, which was in Arlington, Bakugan Dragonoid and Daniel Murray was on top. He was the event champion, was on top with 50 points. Soldier Fortune was in second with 40. Tied with Crush Station with J-Pace Racing in 40. Monster with Dalmatian and Max D were tied for 4th with 39. Gas Monkey in 5th with 35. Dragon and Northern Nightmare tied for 6th with 31. Earth Shaker in 9th with 30. Alien Invasion in 10th with 29. Blue Thunder in 11th with 21. And Megalodon in last place with 19 points. Now, this week, we were in Detroit, so it was the second stop as we progress closer to the midpoint, which is usually when it gets more exciting. But in Detroit, we had Megalodon, who was the very first truck out for qualifying. We're going off of the racing bracket. That's how all the trucks are lined up for the event. So the winner of racing in Arlington is the last truck to go, and then the slowest loser in round 1 is the first one to go. So that's how we dictate the lineups for that event. So Megalodon was the slowest loser in Arlington, therefore he went first in qualifying, and Brandon Thunder held that fastest time all the way until the end. 12 trucks up, 12 trucks down. Megalodon was on top with a 24.42, which was the only time within the 24-second range in qualifying that day. Everybody else was in 25, 26, occasionally 27, 28. We had a few DNFs and a few amount of penalties, as it was a tricky track. It was kind of a figure 8 on either end, and it was hard and it was awkward, but they made it through. Megalodon, though, getting the next 12 crucial points to help him, given that he was in last place when we left off in Arlington. Next up was the high jump competition, where Monster with Dalmatian and Umboji got his first win of the season. He almost got racing last week. At least he was in the semifinal, so he got closer, but he did get the high jump win with 33.7 feet. Crush Station and J-Pace Racing right behind him with 33.6, so almost tying and almost beating, really, Monster with Dalmatian, but he stayed on top and got those next set of 12 points, which helped him out tremendously as well. Moving on to racing, it was an interesting event, really. We did see a front flip at some point in racing too. I believe it was Blue Thunder. It was a crazy front flip, I'm sure completely unintentional. It was against Monster with Dalmatian in round 2, given that he received the bye run into round 2 from being the second fastest qualifier that day. And I mean, it was a crazy one. You should definitely go check it out if you haven't already. But we did start off racing with a head-to-head competition between Alien Invasion, who was your Season 1 Arena Series winner, and Crush Station, and J-Pace Racing, who was your Season 2 Arena Series winner. So we had a race between the 2 Arena Series champions in round 1 to start it off, and it was a great one. Unfortunately, Alien Invasion did get a DNF when she did hit the jump that Blue Thunder hit, which sent her kind of somersaulting forward and not being able to finish the race. So Crush Station did move on to face the fastest qualifier, Megalodon, in round 2, which, he ended up knocking him out and made it to the semifinals, got knocked out by Soldier Fortune. So really, the championship round ended up being Dragon and Flames Plays against Soldier Fortune and Brian the Dog Webb, where Dragon came out on top, getting his first racing win of the season, at least for the Stadium Series. So helping him out a lot, moving him up in the leaderboards, and just all out a great outing for him. And speaking of Flames Plays and Dragons, when it came to skills, he came and killed it, and beating Max D and Ethan Waters, who is the reigning World Finals 2 racing and skills champion. He got second place, but still it was an amazing attempt. But Dragon and Flames Plays had the best attempt, really, an 8.895 to win it. Did the I guess the moonwalk off of the container, I guess it's a nose wheelie, I don't know, maximum moonwalk when Max D does it. I don't know what it's called when anybody else does it, but you know, backed up on the backflip container, popped off of it, did a little nose wheelie, hit the moonwalk, did a backflip, and landed perfectly, and then went and did a moonwalk off of one of the side jumps by the race lanes and just carried it all the way across the track. It was an amazing outing and a very well-deserved score. We did have some other great outings. Again, Max D got second place, 8.821. Alien Invasion and Cecily 96, your World Finals 1 skills champion, came out. She had an amazing attempt too, an amazing sidewall save after a moonwalk. It was just an awkward landing, but she was able to get that perfect sidewall. It was great. Blue Thunder was another notable one. And he ended up getting fourth place, so not too bad. It was a great skills outing nonetheless. So moving on to freestyle, which was the last competition of that event, and Bakugan, Dragonoid, and Daniel Murray was the very last truck to hit the freestyle track, as he was the racing winner back in Arlington. He ended up taking the freestyle when he came out with one of the best runs we've seen so far, one of the highest scores we've seen so far this season, with a 41, a 37 in regulation, and a 4 in bonus time to get the freestyle win, taking it away from Blue Thunder and Action Phil, who was right there with a 38. So unfortunate for Blue Thunder, but still he got 11 points, which is going to help him out a lot. Bakugan really helping out his score there. I mean, you would think he may have gotten another event championship, but no, it ended up going to Dragon and Flames Plays with 48 total points. Once it was all said and done, Blue Thunder and Action Phil was in second with 44 points, and Megalodon in third with 39. So it was close, but Dragon stayed on top with that racing and skills win. It really propelled him forward and helped him out in the overall event champion. So once it was all said and done, Bakugan Dragonoid is still in the lead at the completion of Stop 2 with 87 points. However, Dragon has now propelled himself forward and is in second place with 84 points. And looking back at the leaderboards from Arlington, Dragon was in 6th place. And now he's in second place after an amazing outing in Detroit. So he is 3 points shy of tying Bakugan, Dragonoid, and Daniel Murray. Max D is in third with 76. Soldier Fortune is in fourth with 72. Crustacean in fifth with 71. Dalmatian in sixth with 69. Blue Thunder in seventh with 65. Megalodon tied for eighth with Alien Invasion with 58. Earthshaker in 10th with 57, and Gas Monkey and Northern Nightmare in last place with 51. Now, this was a interesting development because Northern Nightmare has never been in the last place position, and remember, he is the back-to-back champion of the Stadium Series. It's amazing that he went from being the back-to-back series champion to now being in last place currently, but again, it's only the second stop. There's 3 more to go before we get to World Finals, and the points in World Finals count towards the Stadium Championship, so you never know what's going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see when we go to San Diego for the midpoint of the Stadium Series. But before we get there, we're going to be going to the third stop, the midway point of the Arena Series, which is pretty much it's looking like a good series so far, as Captain's Curse is still on top with 45 points. El Toro Loco in second with 40. Ice Cream Man in third with 38. Gravedigger in fourth with 34. Doomsday in 5th with 32, and Monster Mud Husky in 6th with 31. Now again, this is the midway point. We are going back to Greensboro after going there last season in Season 2, and Season 2 was in Greensboro was a crazy one. A lot of crashes in qualifying, a lot of crashes in racing. It's kind of a lackluster track, so the creativity that these drivers are going to have to come up with is going to be very interesting to see, to say the least. But Captain's Curse is on a roll right now with 2 racing wins so far this season, currently 4-0 with his racing record. El Toro Loco having 2 high jump wins and 2 skills wins, looking for his third in Greensboro. And right now we have a split freestyle wins between Doomsday after he won in Denver and Gravedigger after she won last time in Portland. So it's going to be interesting to say the least, and looking forward to it. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. It's going to be releasing today on YouTube at 4 p.m. Central Time. It's going to start with qualifying, and then the rest follows as normal. High jump on Tuesday, racing Wednesday, skills Thursday, and freestyle on Friday. Patreons, if you are subscribed as a Rookie Driver Patreon, you will be seeing San Diego Stadium Series today at 4 p.m. Central Time, and it's going to follow the rest the same schedule as the rest. So that being said, that's all the updates for the Steel Titan series. Let's go ahead and move on to the main point of the series, the main point of the podcast today, which is going to be World Finals 1. Now, before I get there, I got to do it one more time. I'm going to have to promote W one more time again, guys. I wouldn't promote it if it wasn't good. W.GG. It's the cleanest, zero sugar, zero calories. It's good stuff. I'm telling you right now, if you're hesitant on trying it like I was at the original point, try the starter sample pack. Now they've changed it from what I said last time. You will only get a shaker cup and 3 samplers of the energy packs. So one's going to be Beach and Peach, which is my personal favorite. I say it every single time. It's the best flavor. You'll also get a sample of Galaxy Grenade, which is my second favorite. It's right there with Beach and Peach, but nothing beats Beach and Peach for me. And then the third flavor will be Dragonade, which I've tried. I'm not a fan of it, if I'm being completely honest, but it's still worth a try. Who knows? It might be your favorite. So again, use code Project Rodrod to receive 10% off of your W Energy order. If you don't want to buy a tub, at least try the sampler. It's good stuff, I promise you. And a small portion of that purchase goes back to me, which helps support the channel and goes a long way. So again, use code Project Rodrod to receive 10% off of your W Energy order. Be better with W Energy. Now, let's get started with the topic of today's video, which is Monster Jam World Finals 1. And like I've said before, I do have a YouTube video of this already on my YouTube channel. And if you do want to check that out, if you don't, that's cool. Just listen to this. I'm sure it's a lot easier than sitting there and watching a video. But it is called From the Archives, Monster Jam World Finals 1 Highlights and Reflections. And like I said, I'm just going to go over a quick recap of everything that happened, what went on, and in my personal opinions of the event as a whole. So let's go ahead and get started, as this all started back in March 25th of the year 2000. So we're looking at 24 years ago in Sam Boyd Stadium in Las Vegas, which is still one of the best stadiums of all time for the Monster Jam World Finals to be in. And I'm sure a lot of us would wish that they would continue doing World Finals there, but something happened. I forget the exact details, something about a football team moving. I don't know. If you know, let me know, because I forget. And I'm sure if they were to ever do at least one more World Finals here, it would be one of the biggest ones ever. Sellout crowd, one of the best shows of all time. With our luck, they probably won't do that. But anyways, this would be the home of the Monster Jam World Finals for the next 18 years before they moved, I think, to Orlando was the first one. So before we get too far ahead though, that World Finals wasn't technically the first World Finals event, since there were other events in the late 80s running into the 90s that were considered the World Finals, but they weren't numbered. They were given the name World Finals because it was the last event of the season, and they were champions crowned, but there aren't really many records of these events and what went on and who won. But most of them were held in pretty famous and well-known stadiums, domes, arenas, whatever you want to call them, those of which being the Pontiac Silverdome, Rosemont Horizon, Houston's Astrodome. Just a lot of really famous, and I don't think a lot of these are really around anymore, but a lot of famous places, a lot of famous tracks. But like I said, though a lot of these champions were crowned, not a lot of fans, including myself, really consider these winners and events as part of the official list of World Finals events and winners. Really, if you think about it, it was more like a reboot of the World Finals, I guess, since there was a lot of changes going on. So I don't know, maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not too sure on it. I'm sure my Monster Jam historians would like to fill me in on that. And if you'd like to be on the podcast, let me know. I'd love to learn more about this. But anyways, this new millennium marked the reboot of the World Finals, where 16 trucks would come and battle it out for a racing and freestyle championship, given that those were the only competitions available at that time. This would also introduce one of the most iconic racing styles ever, Vegas style, also known as J-Hook, and the 16 legendary trucks and drivers in this event were Joe Cypher and Airborne Ranger, Sky Hartley and Sting, Jim Jack and Reptoid, Rob Nell and MWO, which was a mystery at that time. It was like doomsday of that time. Nobody knew who the driver was until way later on. Guywood and Bulldozer, Lyle Hancock and Wrenchhead, or wrenchhead.com, however you want to consider it, Alan Pizzo and Predator, Dave Pizzo and Prowler, John Seasock and Sudden Impact, Scott Stevens and King Crunch, Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger, Medusa and Medusa, who was the first female in World Finals, Charlie Pocket and Nitro Machine, Jim Kohler and Avenger, Tom Meents in Goldberg, and last but not least, the legend, the icon himself, Dennis Anderson in Gravedigger. Now, the first race of round one was Tom Meents in Goldberg defeating Charlie Pocket and Nitro Machine. Next would be Alan Pizzo and Predator knocking out Guywood and Bulldozer. Bulldozer making a mistake in the turn, which cost them the race. Lyle Hancock and Wrenchhead would then upset the future two-time racing champ John Seesock in sudden impact after he absolutely gunned it, throttled it out after the turn, and took the win at the last second. It was amazing. You should really look that up. Sky Hartley and Sting would then defeat NWO, where Sting would come out on top after NWO had a mistake in the turn as well. Just like Guywood and Bulldozer, he made the mistake. But then after that, we would reach the halfway point of racing where Medusa would defeat Joe Cypher in Airborne Ranger after he crashed into the wall, which led him to be out of the event, the rest of the event, because there was just too much damage to the truck. He was just completely out of the event after that. Going forward, Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger would then knock out Jim Jack and Reptoid. Scott Stevens and King Crunch would knock out Jim Kohler and Avenger. And then Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger would knock out Dave Pizzo and Prowler after Pizzo overturned at the hook. From there, the bracket was cut from 16 to 8, and we were that much closer to crowning our first ever official World Finals Racing Champion. The first race of the second round would bring Goldberg against Predator, where Predator would have the same fate as Airborne Ranger and crash into the wall. Luckily, he was able to return later in freestyle. His damages weren't as bad as Airborne Ranger. The second race would be Wrenchhead against Sting, where Sting would have the same fate as Prowler, where he would overturn at the hook, and Wrenchhead would take that easy victory. Gunslinger would get an easy victory over Medusa after she had some trouble coming down Wrenchhead Alley. Don't know exactly what happens. King Crunch was the last race against Gravedigger, where it was one of the closest races of the night, but King Crunch would ultimately upset the Icon and move on to the semifinals. Now, we were down to 4 trucks left before we crowned a racing champion, and the winners of these next 2 races were going to be the finalists of World Finals 1. Goldberg and Wrenchhead would start us off, where Goldberg took an easy win over Wrenchhead.com and would be the first truck and driver into the championship round. Then Gunslinger would take the win away from King Crunch after King Crunch suffered a blown engine, which pretty much ended his entire night. He wouldn't come out for freestyle, so that's now 2 trucks completely out of the competition after out of 16. So we're left with 14 trucks for freestyle as of now. But after that, it was all said and done. There were 2 trucks left: Tom Meents and Goldberg, and the late and great Scott Hartsock and Gunslinger. 2 legendary trucks and drivers who were both very capable of taking the first official Monster Jam World Finals win. Unfortunately, after killing it all night in the left lane, Scott Hartsock would have the same fate as Prowler and Sting and would overturn in the hook, which would leave Tom Meents and Goldberg winning the Monster Jam World Finals 1 Racing Champion, the first of many championships by the Professor Tom Meents. So an incredible race overall. Tom Meents ended up being on top and being your first ever official racing champion in Goldberg. Moving on to freestyle now. 16 trucks total. At this point, we have 14 because of the blown engine by King Crunch and Airborne Ranger crashing into the wall. Freestyle, at this time, freestyle was only a 90-second run where they would have to show off their skills and creativity by hitting the obstacles, hitting the jumps, crushing the cars, doing donuts, whatever it is to wow the crowd and the judges to get the best score possible. The highest possible score was a 40 at that time. Now again, out of 16 trucks, 2 were officially disqualified since they were unable to run, those being Airborne Ranger and King Crunch. Also, this is kind of weird and it's been lost media for a while, but out of the 14 trucks that could freestyle, only 11 of them were shown and had any sort of video for the longest time. So Monster Jam had a pay-per-view release for World Finals 1. It wasn't a live broadcast, they just had a home video release. In that release, they only had 11 trucks shown for freestyle instead of the 14. The reason for those 3 not being shown were because they were too short, ending in under 10 seconds each, so they were cut from the final release, and those would be Prowler, who got stuck after the first hit, Nitro Machine, who nobody really knows. There's no video of Nitro Machine. He's the only one that no video has been found, only pictures. But according to a forum that I found, he hit a stack of cars, performed a wheelie, hit the side of a jump, and then ended up on his lid, and that was it. Reptoid would blow his engine the second he came out. He was going down Wrenchhead Alley, blew his engine, he was done. He didn't even touch anything. So because of that, those 3 trucks were never shown in that home release, in the pay-per-view release, and they were considered lost footage for the longest time until Prowler's run appeared at the credits of Crash Madness, of the Crash Madness 1 DVD, and Reptoid's freestyle run was shown briefly in a future pay-per-view broadcast where it just showed him coming out. It was like a 4-second clip, him coming out, blowing his engine, and that was it. But until this day, footage of Nitro Machine's run has not been found. There's only images of him flipped over and him being back on all fours where the body's kind of damaged. Even though these trucks were very short, with their runs, they still received scores, and even Reptoid, who didn't even touch a single obstacle, received a 4 after he never hit anything. So kind of odd, but I mean, whatever. It was still new. The judging was new. This whole experience was new for everybody. So going back to freestyle and the 11 trucks that did compete, at least on record, at least on video, John Seesock was the first truck to come out to freestyle, and he had a decent run, hitting the race lane a few times. He put up a 26. And after that would be Medusa, who had a pretty good run. She would hit the race lane a couple times, hit a bigger stack, which sent her into a wheelie and then flipping over. Ended her run. Her run would be a 34, knocking out Sudden Impact. NWO was next, had a great start. He would hit a big stack, which would lead him to the one that Medusa hit afterwards that sent her over, which sent him over just on the opposite side. He ended up being the new leader with a 37, knocking out Medusa. Jim Kohler would be next. Pretty much was the exact same run as Medusa's, hitting the same obstacles in the same orders. He got 2 more hits than she did before a flat tire would end his run. He ended up scoring a 25, which would not be enough to take the lead. Guy Wooden Bulldozer would be the next one. He got 4 hits and a donut before he slid off course, ending his run with a 26. Sky Hartley would come out and sting, starting off his freestyle, shedding the body off the truck. But it was a decent run. Not sure exactly what happened. He just ended up stopping, ending his run just abruptly. But he did score a 28, still wasn't enough to take the lead. Scar Hartsock would come out in Gunslinger and would start off his freestyle, taking the big stack that took out Medusa and NWO, and would be the first truck to hit the center jump, but even with the big hits and the longer freestyle than anybody else, he would only score a 34, which was still not enough to take the lead. Alan Pizzo and Predator started off his freestyle in the big way, hitting the center jump, but his momentum died down, hit the race lane a few times before ending his run. His score was at 29. 3 trucks left to freestyle, one of which was Lyle Hancock in Wrenchhead, who started off pretty decent. He did attempt a reverse donut, which kind of the first time we've ever seen something like this. But really what really wowed the crowd and what really gave him the lead was he did a reverse move on the center jump, crushing the container, launching up in the air, which is the thumbnail to my YouTube video. He ended up with a 39, which gave him the lead, and at this time the highest you can get was a 40, so almost perfection. Tom Menson Goldberg, fresh off the racing championship, would try to come out next and top Lyle Hancock's run and go for the double down win. He would hit the center jump where Wrenchhead did the reverse move, and he would get stuck, and I think that ended up giving him a flat tire if I remember correctly. He would then just hit reverse, drive all the way around, and hit the center jump, which on the other side, which would end up being, again, another memorable moment, another famous moment that we've seen time and time again of him just completely wrecking the truck, a tire flying off, a flat tire, broken tie rod in the rear, but it would only be enough for a 37, which again, he only had like 2-3 hits and he scored a 37. But last but not least, it was Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger who would come out in hopes of becoming the freestyle champion after not performing well in racing. And as we all know how it went, we all know the story, he ended up scoring a perfect 40, which is the first and only time a driver has ever had a perfect score in freestyle in the World Finals. So at the end of it all, Tom Meents was your racing champion in World Finals 1, and Dennis Anderson was your freestyle champion in World Finals 1, and these two legendary drivers would give us some of the best moments in World Finals for years to come until their unfortunate retirement. But now that that's all said and done, I can actually finally give my opinions, and I have really no beef with racing, as I've said in my video. Racing was pretty simple. My only complaint was the lack of control in the drivers, but I get it. It was a big event, it was a big stadium, it was something new, so it wasn't something they were used to. Completely understand. But if I had to choose any other driver to take the racing win, it would definitely be Scott Hartsock in Gunslinger. He definitely deserved that win if Tom Meents didn't get it, but Tom Meents was the better driver that night and he earned that win. My biggest beef is with freestyle, just because the scoring was atrocious and made absolutely no sense. I love Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger, one of the best drivers to ever hit the track, the icon of the sport, the guy who really molded and made Monster Jam what it is today. Respect him fully and wholeheartedly, but I don't think he deserved the freestyle win, if I'm being 100% honest. My favorite to win was Gunslinger, just because his run was better, it had more momentum, but the only thing that he was lacking was that he didn't flip. He didn't crash, he didn't flip over, he didn't break a tire. That was the only thing that his run didn't have. He hit just about everything on the track and fulfilled the clock. Like I said, it was a great run. It was a perfect run in my opinion, but he didn't really score well. Going over the other trucks that competed that night, Goldberg had 2 hits. The second hit led to a big crash. He scored a 37, and it wasn't even I don't even think it was a 30-second run. Medusa had 4 hits, all the race lanes, or 3 of them were the race lanes. 1 was a big hit that led it to a wheelie. She flipped over. She scored a 34. NWO had 6 hits, a donut, and rolled over, scored a 37. I mean, it wasn't even a full 90 seconds. Avenger had the exact same run as NWO, but he didn't do a donut and he didn't roll, and he scored a 25. That is a 12-point difference between not doing a donut and rolling over. And I think an Avenger had a longer freestyle run. So it doesn't make sense. Predator had 5 hits. 1 of those was a center jump, and he spent more time driving around the track than really hitting any obstacles. And he scored a 29. But Avenger did way more and scored a 25. Like, you know, what? Come on. Sudden Impact would hit the race lanes 8 times. Bulldozer would hit them 4 times and do a donut, and they both scored a 26. And the exact same score for completely different freestyles. I mean, Wrenchhead had the attempted reverse donut and 4 jumps, one of which was the reverse jump, and he scored a 39. A 39. Almost a perfect score for 4 basic hits, a reverse donut, 3 basic hits, a reverse donut, and that reverse move. And he scored a 39. Didn't even fill the clock. So, come on. I get it. It was all new territory for the fans, the drivers, and the judges, but come on now. Scott Hartsock really should have won that. Really should have won that freestyle championship, given the time filled, the amount of the momentum that he had, and just the overall run. It was a great run. It was a fantastic run. He just didn't flip. He didn't flip. He didn't flip. Let's be honest. He didn't flip, and that's really why he didn't get the score. So, but then you got to look at the trucks that barely did anything. And I don't recall their score, but a good perfect example is Reptoid coming out, blew an engine, didn't even touch a single obstacle. He deserved the 4 when really he should have got like a DNC or something for not competing, because that's what King Crunch and Airborne Ranger did. They never even touched the track because King Crunch had the blown engine, Airborne Ranger hit the wall. They were both damaged, couldn't compete. They got a DNC. Reptoid comes out, blew his engine without touching an obstacle, and he got a 4. He should have got a DNC. Just like King Crunch and Airborne Rangers. So a lot of this didn't really make sense. And it's just, I don't want to say it's frustrating, but it's like, come on now. You know, you're kind of changing history, molding history in a way here, but it is what it is. I did my own scoring system. I used my scoring system that I used in Rigs or Rods in the past and in the Steel Titans series now. And it did have Gunslinger on top with a 40, given the momentum, the time, and all that. Really was a 44, but because 40 being the max, I gave him a 40. But again, no disrespect to Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger or any of the drivers. They all did their best and did what they could. The judges, again, new territory for them. But I just feel like it was more appropriate for Scott Hartsock to get the win, given that he just ultimately had the better run. It is what it is. Let me know what you guys think. That's pretty much the end of this. I know I've kind of been everywhere. I'm kind of just trying to go off of memory and everything with this. But at the end of the day, like I said, it is what it is. It's all my opinion. We're all entitled to our own opinions. Let me know what you think. I want to get more thoughts on this. And let me know your thoughts on World Finals 2, as that's going to be the next video I make for YouTube. MT World Media did send me some comments way back when on the World Finals 2, so I'm going to be sure to include him and shout him out and give him credit for that. And if you have any thoughts of World Finals 2 specifically, let me know. And any thoughts on World Finals 1, let me know. I'd like to know both. But anything specific to World Finals 2, just kind of make sure to separate that. That way I know and I can include that in my video in the future. But that's pretty much it. That's all I got for now. Hopefully next week I do have a guest. I'm going to get that all figured out and scheduled. Do keep an eye out for Season 3. Of the Monster Jam Steel Titans 2 sign-up series this week. Again, like I said, on YouTube is going to be the midpoint of the Arena series, which is going to be in Greensboro. I did have a video release yesterday of Monster Jam, the game 2007, where it was just a Let's Play event, or Let's Play video. So be sure to check that out. I added some comedic effect to that. It's something new that I wanted to try out. So, hey, Project Rod from the future here, and I am doing this right before the ending of the podcast. I completely forgot, and I noticed this during editing, but I almost forgot the common question of the day, and today's common question of the day comes from Angel Garcia, the driver of Earthshaker in the Stadium Series, and his question is, what is your opinion on fan judging? And if you want me to be 100% honest, and in light of me talking bad, not bad, but kind of saying stuff about the judges of World Finals 1, I
do not like fan judging. I hate it. I wish we would go back to the professional judging, because I feel like it was better. I feel like now a lot of fan judges, they tend to be kind of younger kids, if I'm being honest. And I've seen it for myself, where I've had some kids sitting in front of me and they'll be like, oh, I'm gonna give them a 1 just because, and it'd be like a great run or something. But just because it's a truck they don't like, or they just want to be funny, they'll go and score like a 1 on a freestyle, or like a 10 on like a 30-second run or something. I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's really not that fair, because a lot of these fans are kind of biased. I've seen Gravedigger runs fill in half the time and get like a 10, and then another like not as well-known truck fill the 2 minutes, do an amazing run, and only get like a 5, just because the judges are like, or the fans are like, I don't know who this person is, or like, they're not Gravedigger, they're not Tom Mentz, they're not, whatever. I don't know. I feel like the fan judging goes off of big names with drivers and trucks than they do the actual performance, and I just feel like it's not fair in the least. So I'm glad that World Finals does have professional judges and fan judging to do the judging. But if we could go back to strictly professional judging from here on out, I would much rather prefer that. It's just, in my personal opinion, I feel like it's better. I feel like a lot of people agree. But if you don't, let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are on fan judging, and if you think we should go back, or we should keep it the same, or what we should change. But that is the comment question of the day. Please be sure to comment down below what your question would be, and I can definitely have it in my next podcast as long as I remember. But let's go ahead and go back to past Project Rod so we can wrap this podcast up.
But that's pretty much it. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you guys again so much for listening. Be sure to rate, be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out W Energy. Use 10%, or use code Project Rod to receive 10% of your W Energy order. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.